Now, he's called it a world-leading piece of legislation. Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese says the government is set to introduce a law that would ban all children under the age of 16 from using social media. The plans are set to be put forward to Parliament this year and could be enforced as early as next year. The bill involves an age verification process, which Albanese says will put the onus on these social media platforms to demonstrate they're taking reasonable steps to prevent access to their sites. Liza Kamenov has the story.
It's a historic legislation to protect young children from cyberbullying. If the proposed bill passes Parliament, platforms like Facebook, Instagram and TikTok will no longer be accessible for children under 16 in Australia. Prime Minister Anthony Albanese announced the new law on Thursday, calling to protect children online.
Social media is doing harm to our kids, and I'm calling time on it. I've spoken to thousands of parents, grandparents, aunties and uncles. They, like me, are worried sick about the safety of our kids online. And I want Australian parents and families to know that the government has your back.
The government says the ban will not have exemptions for children who have consent from their parents, nor those who already have accounts. Social media companies are expected to enforce the new rule themselves or face penalties. Users, however, will not be fined. Websites like YouTube will still be accessible for schoolwork. According to Australia's e-safety commissioner, 1 in 5 Australians has been cyberbullied. This includes receiving threats or abuse online, sharing embarrassing photos, and spreading online gossip. According to the Australian Council for Educational Research, in 2022, the country was ranked second in the world for child cyberbullying. The decision comes after parents increasingly called for their children to be protected online. The government proposed a social media age limit earlier this year, which gained support among lawmakers. The proposed legislation, if passed in the Parliament, will come into force after 12 months.
Let's get more on this and speak to Dr. Sarah Rose, Associate Professor of Child Psychology and Education at Staffordshire University. It's great to have you on the programme, Sarah. Thank you so much for joining us. I want to first of all just get your initial reaction to this potential piece of legislation. As a Professor of Child Psychology, do you back it?
I think it's really interesting. I think it comes from a place of well-meaning. We want to protect children. But I'm not sure that this legislation is necessarily going to be the answer. I worry that it will just move the problem, because when a child becomes 16, they don't suddenly become able to protect themselves and keep themselves safe online. And I think allowing children to use social media from age 13, as we currently have, enables parents to support their children. It enables providers to put limits on accounts based on the fact that the child is under 16. So I think that it comes from a place of good meaning, but I'm not sure it's going to be very easy to enforce. And I'm not sure that it's going to really have the effect that we want. It's just going to move the problem.
Well, you're kind of hinting at what the head of safety at Meta has been saying. We've had some reaction from them. Of course, Meta owns Instagram as well as Facebook. He says that a deeper discussion needs to be had on how to implement the protections. Give us a sense on how you think the social media platforms will actually enforce this piece of legislation. How will they comply?
I think it's going to be incredibly difficult for them to comply. We know already, based on research evidence, that parents will help their child under the age of 13 to set up a social media account. I think we've got a similar thing happening in the UK at the moment with the online safety bill, and the onus is being put on the platform providers to make it more stringent so that they can be more confident that users who say they're over the age of 13, or potentially in this case Australia over the age of 16, are genuinely over that age. But I think, yeah, it's definitely a problem, a challenge for the platform providers. I don't know what the solution for them is, really.
And Sarah, this is, of course, part of a wider push globally. You mentioned in the UK that they're also trying to supervise young people's use of social media more. Why is there so much of a focus on it right now?
I think it's something that adults are concerned about. We recognise that children are more vulnerable, so we want to protect children. It's challenging for parents because technology moves so quickly that it's hard for parents to keep up. So you mentioned Meta, Instagram, Facebook. They have instilled within the last couple of years a great number of parental controls. But the problem is that many parents don't know those parental controls are there. We need to try and look for opportunities to support parents and to support teenagers online. While teenagers are at school, there's an opportunity there to provide education through the curriculum. And that's one of the reasons why I worry that banning it for children under 16 will remove that opportunity for them to develop those online safety, those digital resilience skills, that ability to recognise, to manage online risk and to recover from online risk.
So it sounds like there needs to be a wider education for both parents as well as children as well, using those social media sites. I want to speak about the children and get their perspective on this, what you think their reaction would be to this. Of course, young people, they want to keep up with their friends. When they're outside of school, they're using social media to chat to their friends and doing other things. What do you think they're going to be thinking? How do you think they're going to be reacting to this piece of legislation? Do you think they're going to comply?
Really good question. Probably not, is my honest answer. And I think the reason for that is there's two ways to approach this problem of online risk. One way is to restrict, to put a law in place such as this that just says you're not allowed to do it. The other way is to think about mediating and scaffolding and supporting their use. So having those conversations, engaging in discussion, asking children what they would like. Now, from research that we've carried out here at the University of Staffordshire with children and their parents, they recognise the risks. They also recognise some of the benefits of social media, that opportunity to feel connected to others, to connect with other people who have interests such as their own. And it's about how we can provide opportunity for children to get those benefits while trying to minimize risks by, for example, using teen accounts on Instagram, and supporting them to develop their digital resilience, that ability to recognize, manage, and recover from risk.
Yeah, social media is a bit of a curse and a blessing at the same time. Do you think if this piece of legislation is effective, do you see other countries following suit and putting in place a legislation like it?
I think certainly other countries will be watching and looking to see what happens. To what extent it's going to be a very popular piece of legislation, I'm a little bit unsure. I think it's a simple solution, and some parents will definitely find that attractive and feel that it will protect their children. But I think that other parents may resent that feeling of being told what they're allowed to do, what they're not allowed to do, what they're allowing their children to do and not allowing their children to do. Parents use social media for keeping in touch with their children sometimes as well. So it's thinking about, how it's going to be received as well, I think will be interesting to see.
Yeah, we'll be looking and watching to find out how it all plays out. Sarah, thank you so much for giving us your thoughts. We really appreciate getting your analysis and getting you on the programme. That's Dr. Sarah Rose, who is an Associate Professor of Child Psychology and Education at Staffordshire University. Thanks so much for your time.